A few months ago, I made a video giving advice to people that are thinking about going into college and getting their bachelor's degree, or maybe they're high school seniors, and they're thinking about getting a college degree, and they're essentially planning out the next 5 years of their life. And I made that video sharing some bits of wisdom that I wish people had shared with me when I was 18 or 19 years old that I didn't learn until, I was done with it all. Because my college experience wasn't really the most linear that it could have been. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It does take a lot longer to finish, but you do, you are the sum of all your experiences. So I wouldn't really be the same person I am now had it been just, a straight line. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if time is a thing that you're worried about and you know exactly what it is that you want to do, then maybe you want to try and make it as linear as possible. But it's not necessarily a bad thing if it's not linear. This video is supposed to be sort of like that, but for graduate students, because I've been in graduate school for a really long time. 2 years master's, 3 years PhD, probably 2 more years until I'm done. And then it's like, okay, what are you going to do afterwards? Because one thing that you have to understand about graduate school is that you're more or less training yourself to enter like the well, it depends. Like a master's and PhD are different. A master's degree, like maybe you're really interested in teaching mathematics, then a master's degree in math could be, really useful because then you kind of get like a taste of what it's like at the university level. It also depends on if you want to go into industry and do stuff like that, because if you get a master's degree, you can get a pretty good pay bump. But if you want a PhD, PhDs are kind of specific toward people that really just want to do research and, write papers and publish and all that stuff. So that's a thing that I probably didn't fully understand, although people did tell me that, I will say that. People did tell me, like, PhDs are really only for people that really want to do research and stuff like that. And I'm starting to like research, but I do like teaching more. So maybe just getting the master's degree was good enough. But I really wanted the PhD. And there was a lot of people that I spoke to, along the way that were kind of sort of, I guess, low-key discouraging me from doing it, because when I was about to enter a master's program, I was really excited. I was talking about it all the time. And I remember I went to my linear algebra instructor. This is at the old university. So I was down the hall. I saw him in his office. I went and I spoke to him. This is after I finished linear algebra. I just wanted to go and talk to him. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about going and get my master's degree. I'm really excited, yada, yada, yada. And I was talking. And I was a good student, by the way. I think, I remember, I was a straight A student in college. And then when I was in his class, because I was a non-degree seeking student at the time, I got an A on the first test. And then on the second test, bad things happened. And I actually failed that second exam. But he did offer a makeup. And I did really well in the makeup because I was determined to pay for my sins, so to speak. And so he knew what kind of student I was, but I think maybe deep down he kind of realized that, yeah, I was a good student, but I wasn't really research worthy. So when I was talking about master's programs and this, that, and the other, he kind of like says, it's not good. It's not just good enough to come to class, get good grades, do the homework, do all this stuff. You really have to, he was telling me, like, to get a master's or PhD, you really need to, no one really cares about your grades in the class, I've come to realize. I mean, yes, they kind of do, but what they really, really, truly, honestly care about is whether or not you're able to prove something novel that's worthy of publishing, and you get it published. Like, the more publications you have, it's a balancing art. Yes, you can have a lot of publications, but maybe those publications are crap. Or maybe they're not crap, but they're not really that impressive. Versus, having a few publications, but those results are really, really good. That's also, that's probably even better than having a lot of, it's quantity versus quality. That's really all I'm trying to say. You have a lot of papers, but they're not that good. You have very few papers, but they're dynamite. Which would you rather have? So it's kind of a balancing act between those two. Because if you have very few papers, but they're really dynamite, that's a lot of hard work in order to get those papers published. Or not to get them published, but to prove something like that, that's really difficult to do, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. I've had there's an instructor at my current university that tells me, like, you're never guaranteed to solve anything. You could spend 7 years trying to solve something, but ultimately it may never happen. Like, you may just not be equipped to solve something like that, and that's kind of a hard thing to hear. And I've had a couple of different people that have done research in mathematics at this university and the previous university that optimism isn't really in their vocabulary. We'll just put it at that. And I point this out because this is something that is important, because if you're thinking about going to graduate school, you have to understand it's not like being an undergrad student. It's not just going to class and solving really hard homework problems and doing well on really hard exams. It's a lot more than that. They really are trying to train you to do research, and if you can't publish, then that's pretty much as far as you go. You have to figure out what else to do with your life. And so credit to the math community, because some people in other fields, I know my brother has told me about this too, is like they kind of, his own words, not mine, they'll sell you this false notion of like, oh, it's great, you're going to be awesome, you'll love it, this is exactly what you want to do. They tell you basically everything you want to hear. And then you get there and you realize, oh no, they all lied to me. The math community, they don't lie to you. They tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. It's probably the best part about the math community, is that they're pretty honest people, almost to a detriment. But I don't want to go that much more into it. But I've talked to university instructors, my own thesis advisor from my previous university, the chair of the department, and they all kind of discouraged me a little bit from keep going into research in mathematics. Not all of them, but some of them have. And I think they weren't like trying to like hurt my feelings. I think they were just trying to be real with me. They're just like, look, had they had to do over again, they would have done something differently. I think that was kind of their perspective. But I was being stubborn, and I was like, nope, this is what I want to do. I understand your concerns, but I've thought about it and meditated on it for a long time, and this is something that I truly, truly want to do, which is one of the bullet points on here that I'm not really going in order here, but you got to want it. If you don't want it, you'll never finish. You got to love the problem that you're working on if you're doing research, and you got to commit to it, because it's going to consume you. Graduate school pretty much consumes most of your life, I would say. It, not 100%, but just from my own experience and seeing my friends in the department, speaking with them during the graduate student interviews that I did a while back, some of them have really thought about like whether or not they really truly want it or not, because they can give like 3 years of really just day in day out effort, but then it really does kind of consume everything. Like, even if like you want to take a break, like let's say you've done 6 hours worth of homework in one day and you've barely solved one problem, then you just stand up and you want to go outside and breathe some fresh air just to get away from it. But it doesn't leave you. You're still thinking about it when you're walking around outside. When you're doing research, you're still thinking about that problem that you can't solve. And that was kind of my experience when I was doing my thesis and my dissertation here to come. If that's something that you don't really want in life, then it's probably not a good idea to be in a graduate school program. But sometimes you can't have everything that you want 100% of the time. Sometimes you just gotta like, okay, yes, this is gonna be tough. Yes, I realize that there's gonna be weeks that I'm just gonna find some alone time to just cry by myself in the stairwell of the math department, but that's what's gonna happen. But it's gonna feel really good when it's done. When you're done, you're gonna feel amazing that you did what you set out to do. And I wish I had asked more people this when I was doing the graduate student interviews. Was there ever a point where you really thought to yourself, like, this is too much for me, I want to leave and do something else. I want to get something more out of life. Because every single person that's in the graduate program, they were straight A students in school. They stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure the project got done. They are those type of people. They forwent, I don't freaking know English anymore. They sacrificed all those experiences in college, like making friends, dating, you name it, whatever it is they wanted to do, play video games, I don't really know. They sacrificed all that so that they could meet the demands of their instructors and professors. And even those people, when they get into the graduate program, they're just like, I gave 3 years. I don't know if I want to give any more. And there's people that have walked away. And a lot of them have actually entertained that idea, including myself. Like, I told myself that if I failed my qualifying exam the second time around, I probably was going to leave and do something else. Maybe even enter a different PhD program. I don't know. It was kind of a, what is it? What's the word I'm thinking of? I'll think of it later, but it was a lofty time, I guess you could say. It was a sensitive era. And, I'm a pretty sensitive guy. My emotions kind of right now they're kind of getting a hold of me, which I have to be careful over because emotions, yes, human beings have emotions. You have to be honest with yourself. It's because I'm not doing this stuff at the bottom of my list. You got to make some time to go to the gym. You got to make some time for your hobbies. You got to make some time for your friends. If you want to date and try and start a family and do all that type of stuff, yes, you have to make time for that, because if you don't have that, it's just going to be, you focus on one thing for 24/7, it's not healthy. You have to make sure that you're taking care of your health and fitness, because otherwise you're going to have like some sort of breakdown. Also, make some time for yourself. You have to take care of yourself. You have to meditate if that's your thing. Pray if you're a religious person. And, reflect. That stuff's important. People don't really realize just how important that stuff is until, you start bubbling over. Make time for the things that are the most important to you. Because, why would you make time for things that don't matter? Then you're just wasting your life. At least that's what I've come to learn. It's like, if something is really, truly important for you, even if it's going to be really, really difficult, like for me, getting the PhD is a really important thing to me. I moved more or less across the state to get my PhD because it's really important to me. If you have to be able to sacrifice all that stuff in order to make the stuff happen. If you want to lose, 50 pounds and put on some muscle mass, you have to go to the gym, and that's going to take a really long time to do. But if it's really, really important to you, you'll find the time to do it. If you want to start a family, but it's really, really difficult to get out there and find someone, it's just something that you got to do. You just have to make time for the things that matter the most. And I know this doesn't really sound like real advice for people in grad school, but remember, we're like in our late 20s, early mid 30s. This is the era of your life where you really have to figure all this stuff out. When you're in college, you have, a lot of time. Like if you're 23 years old, you got a lot of time. If you're 33 years old, you start to feel like, I don't have as much time as I realize. You start seeing how life is going to play out because you have more experience. So that's the reason why I included it down here. But if you're actually in graduate school, it's kind of the same stuff that you really should have been doing when you were in the undergraduate program that you probably could get away with not doing. But in grad school, you really don't have a choice. You need to go to every single class. You need to take good notes. If your notes suck, then you got to go to the internet. Go to ChatGPT. Go to Stack Exchange. Go to YouTube like I did. Go wherever they'll accept you to figure out how you can solve a problem, because these homework problems are going to be killer a lot of the times. And you got to know how it's done, because those are the tools that you need in order to do research effectively. Because, like I mentioned earlier, if you don't, you're not guaranteed to solve an open problem in mathematics. You have to be able to, if you can do that, then that's great. You can publish and do all that stuff. But in order to give yourself a fighting chance, I guess this is what I really want to say. In order to give yourself a fighting chance to actually come up with some novel result and get it published, you got to be killer. And you got to be able to do all this stuff. Talk to your professors often. Get help from them. Read, in the words of Werner Herzog. You got to be able to read everything. The only way I had a ghost chance of passing that qualifying exam was because I talked to every single person in the department. I found all the type of stuff that was helping them succeed. I found a myriad of different textbooks on measure theory and integration theory, real analysis, and just taking probability theory also really helped. Pretty much 100% of my efforts were designed to pass that qualifying exam. And to be honest, I just barely made it. It was a very tough experience. Easily the hardest thing I've ever done, probably, was pass that test. And that may be embarrassing to admit, but I don't really care. It was something I worked really, really hard for, and I did everything as best as I could possibly do it. I never had done anything like that before. So having passed that test, it means a lot to me. Which is kind of where I come to the third bullet point on my list. Surround yourself with hard workers. If you want to go to the gym and get into good shape, to do it by yourself, a lot of the time, like maybe you'll last a week, but a lot of the times for many of us, including myself, after about a week, you kind of lose interest and then you stop going. But if you surround yourself with people that love going to the gym and have like this little community, then staying and going to the gym is a lot easier, and you keep at it. I remember a few years ago, me and my family, we had some sort of weight loss, I guess, competition. I don't like using the word challenge, but we had this like weight loss competition. And because we were all in it and we were all committed, we all did really, really well. We lost a lot of weight and we got much healthier. The same is true for graduate students. You got to surround yourself with hard workers. You got to communicate with them on a daily basis. Like me and my friends, we are constantly texting each other, asking like, hey, did you understand how to prove the Hahn-Banach theorem for finite dimensional vector spaces? And I'm like, yeah, and here's a book. Like this book in particular has a proof of it in there. I sent that picture to him to try and help him understand some stuff, and it goes back and forth. I asked him for some help on linear algebra as well. We're constantly, we keep each other honest. We keep each other working hard, and that's how you get better. So the third bullet point here is, like, if I had to pick the best possible bullet point on this list, it'd be the third one. Surround yourself with hardworking people, because getting this PhD has been nothing but a group effort, and the only reason that we've made it as far as we have, I think, is because our collective efforts of trying to help each other build. It's one of the best parts, I think, about being in graduate school is the people you meet, because I love going in and talking to the people, my graduate student friends. I hate being in this apartment alone. The weekends are actually the worst part because I don't get to see anyone. But we won't talk about it. Anyway, it's Father's Day, so if you're a dad out there, happy Father's Day. And tomorrow is Eid, a Muslim holiday. So if you're of the Muslim faith and you're celebrating that, happy Eid. I know at least one person that might watch this video will be celebrating it, so happy Eid.